friends, this is Margie, and welcome back to Mondays with Margie. Make sure you stick around until the end because I'm introducing something I want to start doing with Mondays with Margie, Margie's Weekly Challenge. Each week, I'm going to give you something practical that you can do to put what we've talked about into action. And this week's challenge is all about preparing for those first day of school nerves. Today, we're wrapping up our Back to School series, and I want to talk about something I think is important for students, parents, teachers, and really all of us to remember. Everyone learns differently. Some people find it helpful to read something. Others benefit from hearing it explained, seeing an example, or trying it themselves. And sometimes what works best depends on what you're learning. Some people may need a little extra time, support, or a different approach, and that's okay. Different doesn't mean less. Sometimes in school, it can be really easy to compare yourself to the person sitting next to you. Maybe they finished the assignment before you. Maybe they understood something right away that took you a little longer. Maybe you need accommodations or extra help that your classmates don't need. That doesn't make you any less intelligent, capable, or worthy of being there. It simply means that you learn differently. And as someone with a disability, this is something that's important to me. There were times growing up when I needed additional support in school. I spent time in the resource room, and I was around other students with different disabilities and different ways of learning. Looking back, I think those experiences helped teach me something incredibly valuable. There isn't only one way to be successful. We all have strengths. We all have areas where we need help. And we all deserve the opportunity to learn in a way that gives us the best chance to succeed. That's why accommodations and support are so important. Getting extra time doesn't mean you're cheating. Asking someone to explain something again doesn't mean you aren't smart. Using assistive technology doesn't make your accomplishments any less meaningful. And needing help doesn't mean you're incapable. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is recognize what you need and ask for it, which goes right back to what we talked about last week with self-advocacy. And to the teachers and educators watching, thank you for recognizing that your students aren't all going to learn the same way. Ask what they need instead of assuming. Sometimes changing the way something is explained or giving a student another way to demonstrate what they know can make all the difference. So as we wrap up this Back to School series, here's something I want you to remember. Celebrate your progress instead of comparing it to someone else's. Think about one thing you've learned, accomplished, or improved at recently. It doesn't matter how quickly someone else got there. Your progress is still worth celebrating. And if you're having a difficult start to the school year, give yourself some grace. Keep learning. Keep asking questions. Keep advocating for yourself. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because different doesn't mean less. Okay, friends. I promised you a challenge, so here it is. I want you to think about your first day or first few days of school and write down one thing you're afraid or nervous might happen. Maybe you're worried about finding your classroom. Maybe you're nervous about meeting new people. Maybe you're worried about asking a teacher for help. Maybe you're afraid you won't understand an assignment or know what to do in a certain situation. Whatever your fear is, write it down. Then take that fear to your parent, caregiver, teacher, or another trusted adult and talk about it together. Ask them, what can I do if this actually happens? Then practice it. You could role play the situation together. Practice what you might say. Figure out who you could ask for help, or come up with a plan for what you can do if that situation happens. The point of this challenge isn't to make all of your fears disappear. It's to practice what you're fearful of before it happens so that you'll have an idea of how to handle it if it does. When you've already thought about it, talked about it, and practiced it, you may walk into that situation feeling a little more prepared and a lot more confident. So remember, name the fear, talk about it, make a plan, practice the plan. That's your Margie's Weekly Challenge. Thank you for joining me for this entire back to school edition of Mondays with Margie. We've talked about being more than a diagnosis, being an inclusive friend, speaking up for yourself, and remembering that everyone learns differently. My hope is that you take these messages with you throughout the entire school year. Be kind, include others, use your voice, celebrate what makes you different. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what you're most excited about with the upcoming school year. Also, please share this episode with a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at More Than Able Studio. You can also subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels so you don't miss an episode. And be sure to tune in next week when I kick off a brand new Mondays with Margie series for Hydrocephalus Awareness Month. And remember, you are more than able. See you next Monday.